The president spoke with Fox Business Network's Maria Bartiromo today, and she is with us tonight. Good evening, Maria. The president came down pretty hard on his predecessor today.
Yeah, well, he reiterated today that he inherited a mess, and whether it be the chemical weapons in Syria or the surveillance of President Trump and his team, I asked him, look, during the transition, you said to everybody that President Obama was really gracious. Do you not feel that way? And he said, well, after learning what I've learned, I actually do feel differently. So he certainly was. And with regard to Syria, he was pretty clear that this is not the beginning of a new entanglement, but that he is going to make sure that the Syrians know and the Russians know that if, in fact, we see atrocities like that, the U.S. will not stand down. Remember, many people believe that Secretary Kerry was an advocate for a military strike, even a limited strike in Syria, and President Obama kept pushing back. He rejected it. That's certainly what President Trump feels today.
Maria, President Trump is also saying some very tough things about Bashar al-Assad, obviously. Yeah,
and in an answer to my question about the impact on Russia, he said he's an animal, basically, Brett. He said, look, when I saw those pictures of those dying babies in their father's arms, I had to act. But I said to him, look, they had a response, and they said this will damage the relationship between the U.S. and Russia. Here's what he said about that.
Frankly, Putin is backing a person that's truly an evil person. And I think it's very bad for Russia. I think it's very bad for mankind. It's very bad for this world. But when you drop gas or bombs or barrel bombs, they have these massive barrels with dynamite, and they drop them right in the middle of a group of people. And in all fairness, you see the same kids, no arms, no legs, no face. This is an animal.
Yeah, so obviously he defended what happened, and the truth is, Brett, he's gotten broad global support for that action in Syria. People feel that was the right move.
Yeah, and obviously he feels emboldened by that reaction as well. You also asked about domestic priorities. Here's a soundbite about going after health care, maybe before tax reform.
So we're going to have a phenomenal tax reform. But I have to do health care first. I want to do it first to really do it right.
But do you have to do health care before tax reform?
Yes.
When I speak?
If you don't do that, you can't put any of the savings into the tax cuts and the tax reform.
Have you moved off of this soft deadline that your team put in place of August to get this done? Are you looking at the later in the year?
I don't want to put deadlines. Health care is going to happen at some point. Now, if it doesn't happen fast enough, I'll start the taxes. But the tax reform and the tax cuts are better if I can do health care first.
So do you sense that he's emboldened by what he's hearing from his Capitol Hill team, that maybe they do have the votes and the deal?
It feels like, well, they've been working on this. So while the rest of the country was thinking that this was dead in the water, they have been negotiating. And that's what he keeps saying, we are still negotiating. But the answer is $900 billion. Brett. I mean, that's why they have to get health care done. They have to pay for the tax cuts. And these tax cuts, meaning taking the rates all the way down, cutting taxes for most Americans, as well as corporate tax coming down, emboldening businesses to actually cut spending and hire people and invest in their businesses. So because health care, taking away those Obamacare taxes, will save $900 billion, that's why he's so set on doing health care first. I don't know. I don't think the August deadline is in place. I think it's going to be much later in the year. I do think he's committed to tax reform, but he's going to have another battle. I just spoke with another congressman who said, look, I can't support doing away with the property deduction. So he's going to have a back and forth about deductions and about this so-called border adjustment tax.
Yeah, and when you talk to the CEOs, I mean, that's what they care about the most, right?
That's what they think is going to move the needle on economic growth. Cutting taxes. We've got the highest corporate tax rate in the world. Taking it down to 20% would do a lot in terms of their willingness to spend money on new jobs.
Maria, as always, thank you. And the interview tomorrow?
Tomorrow mornings with Maria on the Fox Business Network, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern.
Excellent.
FBN.
Thank you, Maria. Appreciate it.